The rain was relentless, hammering the streets of Seattle like it was trying to drown the city's secrets. I stood under the awning of a dive bar, my breath fogging in the cold, my heart pounding louder than the bass leaking from inside. One reckless decision had led me here, and the stranger's lips on mine still burned in my memory. A fleeting mistake I couldn't shake. I wasn't supposed to be at the Rusty Anchor that night. I was Ethan Carter, the guy who played at Safe 24, graphic designer, the one my friends called the responsible one. But last Friday, after a brutal week of deadlines and my mom's endless calls about her upcoming family dinner, I'd snapped. I needed out. I needed some anything to feel alive. The bar was a haze of neon and cigarette smoke, and I was 3 whiskeys deep when he walked in. He was magnetic. Tall, with messy black hair falling into his eyes, a leather jacket that hugged his frame, and a smirk that promised trouble. He didn't belong in that grimy bar any more than I did. But when our eyes met across the room, the world tilted. His name was Lucas, he said, voice low and smooth like the jazz playing in the background. We talked about nothing, about everything until the words didn't matter anymore. 1 drink became 2, then 3, and before I knew it, we were stumbling into his apartment, a blur of heat and desperation. His hands were fire, his kisses a storm, and for one night, I let go of everything me fears, my rules, my carefully curated life. Morning came too fast. I woke in his bed, the sheets tangled around me, his arm draped over my waist. Panic hit like a freight train. I wasn't this guy. I didn't do one-night stands. I didn't even know his last name. Slipping out before he stirred, I left without a word, convincing myself it was a mistake I could bury. Seattle was big enough. I'd never see him again. I was wrong. The following Sunday, my mom's house in Capitol Hill smelled like rosemary and tension. Family dinners were a tradition, a monthly gauntlet of my parents' expectations and my sister's teasing. I adjusted my sweater, trying to look like the Ethan they knew steady. Predictable. Not the guy who'd lost himself in a stranger's arms 2 nights ago. The doorbell rang, and my mom's voice chirped. Oh, that must be Sarah's guest. Sarah, my older sister, had been vague about her new friend all week, only saying he was someone she'd met through work. I didn't think twice about it until the door swung open, and there he was. Lucas. Same leather jacket, same piercing green eyes, same damn smirk. My heart stopped. He stepped inside, shaking rain from his hair, and his gaze landed on me like a spotlight. Hey, he said, casual as anything, like we hadn't torn each other's worlds apart 48 hours ago. I couldn't breathe. My family was oblivious, chattering about wine and the roast. But Lucas's presence filled the room like smoke. He slid into a chair across from me, his knee brushing mine under the table, and I swear he smelled a slow, knowing curve of his lips that made my skin burn. Did he know who I was to Sarah? Did he know this was my family? Or was this some cruel cosmic joke? Ethan, you okay? My dad asked, frowning as I fumbled my fork. I nodded, muttering something about work stress. But Lucas's eyes never left me. Every time he spoke charming my mom, joking with my Dottie, heard the echo of his voice from that night, whispering things I couldn't repeat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to drag him outside and demand answers. Instead, I sat there, trapped in the suffocating normalcy of mashed potatoes and small talk, while the man I'd sworn to forget unraveled me with a single glance. Sarah leaned over, oblivious to the storm brewing across the table. "Lucas is a photographer," she said proudly. "He's working on this amazing project about identity and belonging. You two would totally get along." "Ethan." I nearly choked. Lucas raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable, but I saw the flicker of amusement in his eyes. He was enjoying this. As dinner dragged on, I pieced together fragments of his life. Lucas Kane, freelance photographer, new to Seattle. He'd met Sarah at a gallery event, and she'd invited him here to meet the family. He was charming, articulate, effortlessly likable, and every word he said felt like a performance. I couldn't tell if he was mocking me or testing me. But one thing was clear, he hadn't forgotten our night together. Not for a second. When dessert was served, Lucas excused himself to the bathroom. My pulse raced. I couldn't sit there anymore, pretending everything was fine. I mumbled an excuse about needing air and slipped out to the back porch. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. I leaned against the railing, trying to steady my breathing, when I heard the door creak behind me. "Nice family," Lucas said, his voice low, teasing. He stepped closer, too close, and I felt the heat of him even through the chill. "You left in a hurry the other morning." I spun to face him, my voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here? Did you know who I was?" His smile faltered, just for a moment, and something raw flickered in his eyes. "I didn't know," he said. "Not until I saw you tonight. Trust me, Ethan, I'm as thrown as you are." I didn't believe him. Or maybe I didn't want to. "Then why are you acting like nothing happened?" "Because I'm not the one running," he shot back, his voice sharp now. "You're the one who bolted without a word. What was I supposed to do? Chase you down?" I opened my mouth to argue, but the words caught in my throat. He was right. I'd run because I was terrified not just of him, but of what that night meant. I'd spent years hiding who I was, keeping my attraction to men locked away from my family, my friends, myself. Lucas had shattered that in one reckless night. And now he was here, standing in my world, threatening to break it all apart. Before I could respond, Sarah's voice called from inside. "Ethan." "Lucas." "Dessert's getting cold." Lucas held my gaze for a moment longer, then turned toward the door. "We're not done," he murmured, brushing past me. His touch sent a jolt through my body, and I hated how much I wanted to follow him. Back inside, I barely tasted the pie. My mind was a battlefield: anger, desire, fear, all colliding. Lucas played his part perfectly, laughing with my sister, complimenting my mom's cooking. But every so often, his eyes found mine, and the air crackled. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. But as the night ended and he said his goodbyes, he slipped a folded napkin into my hand. My fingers trembled as I opened it later, alone in my room. A phone number. And 3 words: "Call me. Please." The napkin sat on my nightstand for 3 days, taunting me. Every time I reached for my phone, my chest tightened, and I'd shove it back in my pocket. Lucas Kane was a grenade, and calling him would pull the pin. Seattle's gray mornings mirrored my mood as I buried myself in work, sketching logos for a client who didn't deserve my focus. My apartment, a cramped studio in Fremont, felt smaller than ever, the walls closing in with memories of his touch, his voice, his damn smirk. I'd always been good at compartmentalizing, keeping my desires tucked away, separate from the Ethan my family knew. But Lucas had ripped that apart, and now I was unraveling. On Wednesday, I caved. My thumb hovered over his number before I hit call, my heart hammering like I was 16 again, sneaking out to meet a crush my parents could never know about. He answered on the second ring. "Took you long enough," Lucas said, his voice warm, teasing, like we were old friends, not strangers who'd shared a bed and a secret. "I don't even know why I'm calling," I admitted, pacing my apartment. "This is insane. You're my sister's friend. You were at my family's house. Trust me, I didn't plan that," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "But I'm not sorry it happened. Are you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I asked, "What do you want?" "Lucas." "To see you again," he said simply. "No games. Just you and me. Talking. Figuring out what this is." I should have hung up. I should have deleted his number and pretended Friday never happened. But his voice stirred something in me, something I'd buried so deep it hurt to feel it again. "Fine," I said. "Coffee. Tomorrow. Neutral ground." The cafe on Pike Street was crowded, the air thick with the scent of espresso and rain-soaked coats. Lucas was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with a black coffee and a notebook, his camera resting beside it. He looked up as I approached, and his smile hit me like a punch, soft, genuine, nothing like the cocky grin from the bar. "You showed," he said. "Barely," I muttered, sliding into the seat across from him. Up close, in daylight, he was even more disarming. His eyes were a deeper green than I remembered, flecked with gold, and his fingers tapped the table like he was nervous. Good. I wasn't the only one. We talked awkwardly at first, then easier, like the night we met. He told me about his photography, how he'd moved to Seattle to chase a grant for his project on identity. "It's about people who feel like they don't fit," he said, his voice quiet. "People hiding who they are." His eyes met mine, and I felt exposed, like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. I told him about my life, safe, predictable, suffocating. About my parents, who loved me but expected a version of me that didn't exist. About the years I'd spent pretending I was someone else. "I don't do things like Friday," I said finally. "That's not me." "Maybe it is," Lucas said, leaning forward. "Maybe you're just scared to admit it." I wanted to argue, but his words cut too close. Instead, I changed the subject, asking about his camera, his favorite places to shoot. He lit up, describing the way light hits the Puget Sound at dawn, and I found myself hanging on his words, drawn to his passion. When he reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, I didn't pull away. Over the next week, coffee turned into late-night texts, then long walks through the city. Lucas had a way of making the world feel bigger, brighter, like every moment was a frame he could capture. We wandered through Pike Place Market, dodging tourists and stealing bites of each other's pastries. We sat by the waterfront, sharing stories under the stars. And every time he looked at me, I felt see not the Ethan I showed the world, but the one I'd hidden for years. But the guilt was a shadow I couldn't shake. Sarah had no idea about us. And every time she mentioned Lucas, how great he was, how she wanted to set him up with a friend, I felt like a traitor. I was falling for him. Hard. And it terrified me. What happened when my family found out? What happened when the world I'd built came crashing down? One night, we ended up at his apartment again. The same place where it all started. This time, there was no whiskey. No blur of desperation, just us. Sitting on his couch. The city lights spilling through the window. "Ethan," he said, his voice soft. "What are you so afraid of?" I looked at him. His face inches from mine. And the truth spilled out. Everything. My family. Losing them. Losing myself. I swallowed hard. I've spent my whole life hiding. I don't know how to stop. He didn't say anything. He just pulled me close. His arm steady. Grounding. And when he kissed me, it wasn't like the first time, wild and reckless. It was slow. Deliberate. Like a promise. For the first time, I let myself believe it could be real. But reality has a way of catching up. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Dinner at Mom's tonight. Lucas is coming. You in?" My stomach dropped. Another family dinner. Another chance for everything to unravel. I glanced at Lucas, still asleep beside me, his face soft in the morning light. I wanted to stay in this moment, where it was just us. No secrets. No consequences. But I couldn't hide forever. "I'll be there," I texted back, my hand shaking. Lucas stirred, his eyes blinking open. "Everything okay?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Yeah. Just family stuff." But as we got ready to face the day, I knew tonight would change everything. I couldn't keep lying, not to Sarah, not to my parents, not to myself. Lucas was worth it. We were worth it. But the cost of that truth might be more than I was ready to pay. The drive to my mom's house felt like a march to the gallows. Seattle's streets blurred past, rain streaking the windshield, each drop a reminder of the storm I was walking into. Lucas sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee, a quiet anchor in the chaos of my thoughts. We'd spent the day talking, laying bare the things we'd both been avoiding. He told me about his own struggles growing up in a small town where being openly gay wasn't an option, leaving home to find a place where he could be himself. "I'm done hiding," he said, his voice steady. "I want this. Ethan. I want us. But I need you to want it too." I did. God, I did. But wanting something and having the courage to claim it were two different things. My family wasn't cruel, but they were traditional. Me dad's quiet disapproval. My mom's insistence on finding the right girl. I'd spent years dodging their expectations. And now I was about to blow it all up. At the house, the familiar warmth of my mom's cooking greeted us. But the air felt heavier than usual. Sarah was already there, setting the table, her smile bright as she hugged Lucas. "You're becoming a regular," she teased, oblivious to the tension coiling in my chest. My parents were their usual selves, dad grumbling about work, mom fussing over the food, but I could barely focus. Lucas was too close, his presence a reminder of everything at stake. Dinner started innocently enough. Small talk, laughter, the clink of glasses. But then Sarah turned to Lucas, her eyes sparkling. So, Lucas, any special someone in your life? I've got a friend who'd love to meet you. The room went silent. At least for me. Lucas's hand froze on his glass, and his eyes flicked to mine, a question in them. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there, my heart pounding, as he smiled a careful, measured smile. Actually, he said, there is someone. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. Oh. Spill. Who is she? My mom leaned in, curious. My dad looked up from his plate, and I felt the world tilt, just like it had that first night at the bar. Lucas's gaze held mine, steady, unwavering. It's not a she, he said quietly. It's Ethan. The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. Sarah's fork clattered to her plate. My mom's smile faltered. My dad's face hardened, his jaw tight. And May couldn't breathe. Lucas had just laid my secret bare. Without warning. Without permission. Part of me wanted to hate him for it. But another part, the part that had been suffocating for years, felt free. Ethan. Sarah's voice was small, confused. You and Lucas. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Lucas reached for my hand under the table, his touch grounding me. I'm sorry, he said, his voice low. Meant for me. I couldn't keep pretending. The silence stretched. Unbearable. Then my mom spoke, her voice trembling. Ethan, is this true? I looked at her, at the worry in her eyes, at my dad's clenched fists, at Sarah's shock. I could lie. I could laugh it off. Say it was a misunderstanding. Keep the peace. But Lucas's hand in mine was warm, real, and for the first time, I didn't want to run. Yes, I said, my voice shaking but clear. It's true. I'm gay. And I'm with Lucas. The room erupted. Sarah's questions came fast, a mix of hurt and curiosity. My dad pushed back from the table, his face unreadable, and walked out. My mom started crying, not out of anger, but something softer, sadder. Lucas stayed by my side, silent but steady, as I answered what I could, my voice growing stronger with every word. It wasn't easy. Sarah felt betrayed, not because of who I was, but because I'd kept it from her. My mom hugged me, tears in her eyes, promising she'd try to understand. My dad didn't come back that night, and the weight of his absence lingered. But as Lucas and I left, his hand in mine, I felt lighter than I ever had. I'd lost something, maybe my dad's approval, maybe the illusion of the perfect son, but I'd gained something too. Myself. Weeks later, Lucas and I sat on the same waterfront bench where we'd shared our first real conversation. The city sparkled around us, the lights reflecting on the water, and his arm was around me, warm against the autumn chill. My family was still adjusting. Sarah was coming around. My mom was trying. My dad was silent, but hadn't shut me out completely. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. You okay? Lucas asked, his voice soft. I leaned into him, watching the stars. Yeah. For the first time, I think I am. He kissed my forehead, and I closed my eyes, letting the moment sink in. One night with a stranger had changed everything, forced me to face my fears, To fight for my truth. To love without hiding. It wasn't the ending I'd expected, but it was the one I needed. And with Lucas beside me, I knew it was only the beginning.